Welcome to Beyond the Chutes is presented by Parasite Systems. I'm your host, Doug Simcox, and BTC is on the road again. Finally, the wheels are turning. We are traveling. I am sitting up here, BTC Recording Studio North. Isn't that what we called it, Sam?
I think so.
Yeah, BTC Studio North, I think is what we called it. And of course, Sam Swearingen, my co-host. 2 times North America Rodeo Commission Saddle Bronc Riding Champion and 2 times IFR Average winner. Sam, great to be back at the table with you. Good to have you.
Oh, it's wonderful to have you, Doug. It's a guest again at the house, and we just enjoy doing what we do.
You bet. And we're up here, of course, for your brother Mike's birthday party. Yeah. Celebrating 70 years of age. That's tomorrow afternoon.
What an antique.
What? No, that's not what you're
What an antique.
What an antique. Okay. But got a bunch of friends and a bunch of rodeo cowboys coming in.
It is going to be a wonderful time. I was very impressed with some of the people that called, and old traveling partners are coming to stay at the house. That'll be wonderful, and seeing people. Who knows when the last time we've seen them was?
You bet. And we're going to be up there. We're going to be doing some recording, right? We'll get a hold of some of these folks that are in town. If we can't record with them this weekend, we will get them on the schedule.
Sounds great.
So, back, today we're kind of going back, Sam. We were talking earlier about when this all started in April of 2023. If you remember, the reason we started it was the New York State Rodeo Museum Facebook group page.
That's right.
And I called and said what?
You wanted to do a podcast.
and the rest is history, Sam. You've made a big name for yourself out in podcast land, and away we go.
If I recall, I was going to help you contact people.
Yeah.
Not be on this side of the microphone.
Well, you're in contact with people. Right? When we're on the microphone. But we're going back to BTC's roots. And it all started in New York rodeo history.
And there'll be a lot of those people up there this weekend.
At Mike's place.
Yeah.
You bet. And this is where it all started. This is where the energy started. And we've had some great people as we sit here in the BTC Recording Studio North. We've had Dave Wheeler.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Pat Tooley.
Yep.
Gary Sikoria.
Yep.
Dave
Mintier.
And Daryl Lane on the phone.
Yep.
Right? Who else? Oh, the Backlas family was here. Louis and Michelle were here, and we had a great visit with them. And speaking of families, we had Melanie and the kids sitting here. We had a wonderful recording session with them. Rob Wright, president chairman or whatever it is. Chairman, sorry, I always get that wrong. Chairman of the Rodeo Attica Rodeo Committee Association. We did a bunch of recording last time I was here in December.
Yeah, we were busy. It was interesting. I learned a lot, and it was great to have that brought back to light to the New York Cowboys.
You bet. And some of the history, the rodeo in Rochester back when it was almost like the circus came to town.
Yeah, Estes Park.
Estes Park?
Something like that.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Edgerton Park.
Colonel Estes.
Right. Yeah, Colonel Estes was the contractor, I think, and it was at Edgerton Park.
Edgerton Park.
That's right.
Yeah, yeah. Man, it's we can't even remember all this history, and we just did this in December, dude.
Yeah, it's that old timers I got.
Is that what it is? I think it's a good thing we're recording this stuff. It's
kind
of like Joe Walsh, the rock and roll singer. I heard him on a show one time, and they said, "So you played Cleveland in the Richland Stadium?" And he goes, "I guess I did. I've got the poster." So he didn't quite remember it. But so as I said, we're back to BTC, Beyond the Chutes, Rodeo Roots, how it all started in April 2023. We've got a great guest with us today. He's a cowboy, comes out of the Northeast, and we're kind of sitting in what I'm going to call kind of the hot spot of professional rodeo in the Northeast. Definitely in the state of New York. Maybe it's in the region. Maybe it's east of the Mississippi. Sam, what would you say? Right here, we're in the hotbed.
Yeah, we're in the hotbed of the Northeast. There, a lot of things happen, and Attica Rodeo got a lot of these contestants their start.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
and
yeah.
there wasn't a lot of rodeos to go to in the area.
Yeah.
But they did stuff for kids that helped them out, and it paid off in the long run. Now they do barrel racing and horse shows up there, but when you go to places like Benton, Pennsylvania, that do youth rodeos once a month, now you see that turning into the hot spot of getting young kids out to in the rodeo world.
You bet. It's a long game, isn't it? It isn't just putting on this rodeo. You're building a lot of ways. You're building your rodeo contestants, as you said.
Yeah, and you have to do it because they're dying off in leaps and bounds.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not easy, so.
And it's not cheap, right?
And we went through a cycle where we were our own worst enemies, me being the stock contractor end of it.
Yeah.
You know, we tried to see what our young stuff would do with these kids, and you can't learn nothing getting off the ground. And when you bust that egg,
Yep.
you don't repair it; they're done.
You bet. You bet.
So
You bet. And you're right. Thinking about that in a different way than your job used to be, buck them off, right?
well, I never had that mentality.
Yeah.
No, I'm serious.
Yeah.
You know, especially like in the bull ride when you went to a rodeo, I didn't want to buck them all off.
Yeah. Yeah.
If there was, I wanted like 30% to ride.
You bet.
I wanted to buck a lot of them off. Don't get
Yeah.
me wrong.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
but you wanted. I thought the magic number was 30%.
30%.
Look for the crowd.
You bet.
You know.
You bet.
And
Yeah.
yeah, when all these great young bulls started coming out and they were just putting the kids on them, it played its toll.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And
You bet. You bet.
and I always knew somewhat, but when the boys came around, when my boys started riding, it's a whole new perspective.
It is.
Okay,
It is.
it's about teaching.
Yeah. Yeah. To your
not-
point, how
yeah.
can they learn, right?
Yeah.
They got to be successful at a certain point.
Exactly. And you can't learn much getting off the ground the first jump.
You bet. You bet. So speaking of success and speaking of the BTC Rodeo roots of this podcast, as I said, we're sitting up here in Peffard, New York, and we've got a wonderful guest today. I'm excited to have him on. If you listen to our Attica Memories podcast that we put out in August, first part of August, you would have heard him there. You would have met him there. But please welcome to our show, Mr. Kelly Page, bareback bronc riding extraordinaire. Good to have you on the show today, Kelly.
Thanks. It's good to be here.
It's good to see you. My goodness, when's the last time I saw you? Was I announcing and you were riding?
Maybe,
Maybe.
but I took a long time off of rodeo.
Yeah.
When I quit, I had to step out of the arena and far away from it.
Okay. Well, we're going to get to that, okay? Because there's always a challenge of how do you retire? When is enough? When is it time to quit? Always a challenge. And we're all individuals here. This is an individual sport. So nobody's standing beside you saying, from a coaching standpoint, saying, okay, let's go to the old timers league or something like that, right? The senior league, maybe we should call it. So Kelly, I wanna back way up. I met you probably in 1990. Around
Sounds
that
about
time.
right.
You
Yep.
were riding barebacks at the time. I was riding some saddle broncs at the time and so forth. So as competitors, we got to know each other as you went down the road and everything as we were going around. But let's take it all the way back. Let's go to growing up. Born and raised in this area, Kelly?
Yep. I was born in Warsaw and grew up in Warsaw for a little bit, and always on horses.
Really? From the beginning?
Yeah. My mom was riding a horse the day before I was born, and that might contribute to some, you know.
I'll say it, brain damage.
Yeah.
Did you trot a lot? Was that?
I think so.
Yeah.
But that was in February.
In February. And you were
Yeah.
born in.
February 26th. So, yeah, she was riding in a snowstorm the day before for whatever reason. But, yeah, and I was on a horse from that time on.
Okay.
Always on the horses. And
So let me interrupt here if I can. Go back. Why were they into horses? What was their upbringing that got them into horses or interested?
I have no idea because my grandparents weren't into it. And Mom, she had married a horseman, Doc Van Buren, and so they split up when I was 1. But she kept her horse, and she wanted her kids on horses, I guess, because that's where we were. If we needed milk, I remember one time we needed milk, and she had my little brother, who was an infant, in front of her, me on the back of her horse. So there was 3 on her quarter horse, and my sister was on a pony, and we rode to the store to get a gallon of milk.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
So always had horses around.
Always had them.
Did you have ponies? I mean, is that how this started for you?
Yep. So my brother and I, or my sister before that, we had a couple of ponies that we all started out on. My brother and I learned early how to entertain. The neighbor girls would come down, and we would ride our ponies, start at either end of the lawn, and run towards each other, lock arms. As we crossed, the ponies would keep on running, and we'd fall on the ground.
Oh my gosh.
And the girls loved it, so we kept on doing it.
So you learned horsemanship, you learned how to fall, you learned how to protect yourself, and it sounds like you learned how to entertain at the same time.
Yep. From early age. And Mom told us how to fall off a horse, because most of the horses that she put us on were not broke.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, they were pretty ornery, cheap, but not good horses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was she trading horses? Would she?
No, they were just stragglers that we ended up with, and usually she was on her horse with one of my, with my younger brother, so we were on our own.
Okay.
And we had horses that would just take off with you, and she'd yell out, "Turn them in a circle."
Yeah. And so how old were you when you kind of graduated from ponies to now you're into some serious horsemanship here, sounds like?
So we had a half pony, half horse, and she was faster than most horses. I'll put it that way. She, if we entered games with her, we'd usually win. And that was probably when I was 12, 13.
Okay.
And she was not trained. She was fast.
Okay.
Well, I mean, she had some bad habits. I remember showing at the Pike Fair, and lady in the stand said, "Somebody get that boy off of that horse. He's going to get killed."
And doing a lot of horse showing at that point?
No, because Dad wasn't into it really, and
Okay.
we had a lot of work to do.
Yeah.
And
What were you doing?
hay, wood, and just keeping up the farm. We usually had in that area where we were getting into some more horses when we had, I don't know, 10, 12 horses.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so there was 4 of us riding.
Yeah.
So we're getting into some horse selling and
you were
breaking colts.
Yeah. And mostly your own stuff. Had you brought anything in that you would train for somebody else?
No.
Everything was yours.
Yep.
Okay. And so he'd put them up for sale and that sort of thing.
Yeah, we just green broke them and and sold them.
You bet. You bet. And you said wood.
Oh yeah, we heated with wood. So if we weren't doing hay, we were doing wood, and and
Cutting and splitting the whole thing.
and then switching engines and cars and
What were you racing? What were you doing?
no, just we were poor, so
Okay.
we were working.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
if we weren't riding horses, we were working.
Yeah.
So riding horses was a lot of fun.
So did horse riding ever become work?
No,
No. Even training, got to ride, got to do this, got to do that.
loved every minute of it.
Loved every minute. So horse showing, trail riding, that sort of thing. Easy riding.
Mostly, yeah. Growing up, and if I wasn't breaking a horse out,
Yeah. 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 And then you're 13, 14 when you start this. What's your horse training career look like?
till I went to college.
Okay. And at this point, still hadn't found rodeo.
Nope.
Was around, you knew of it?
Oh yeah, we would go to the Attica Rodeo pretty much every year,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I mean, we loved going to the rodeo, but it never entered my mind that I could enter the rodeo.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And were you doing any school sports, athletics, any band, anything?
So Dad, we couldn't afford to go to school, to sports.
I see.
He wasn't going to drive,
Yep.
So I didn't do too much sports. I think I did do soccer,
Oh, you did. Okay. Okay.
but yeah, mostly stayed at home and fiddled with the horses.
And wood and
Oh
hay
yeah,
and,
sure.
yeah, a lot of baling. So 3 cuttings of hay typically a year, that sort of thing.
So we had the hay we did was on somebody else's land. We didn't have the equipment, so we had to wait until they were all done with their hay and then borrow their equipment. So
Okay.
usually we'd only get 2 cuttings.
2 cuttings.
Yep.
Okay. But all square bales, you're working in the
yeah.
mow, you're doing, yeah, yeah,
We learned one thing when we were young, and that was how to work.
yeah, yeah. and I'm going to ask another question, probably along the same line a little bit later, but what did that upbringing, that work ethic, right? You learned how to work, right? I mean, gets up early and you work till it's done. How did that serve you as a young man going? You talk college. We'll talk a little bit about your college career, but also talking about moving forward and maybe even today. How has that work ethic helped you or guided you?
Well, like I told my kids not too long ago, if you can work, you'll always have a job, especially in today's economy or whatever. There's not too many people that can still work.
Yeah.
But riding those wild horses when I was young taught me a bunch. How to hit the ground, how to have a little bit of grit,
You bet.
and the work ethic. Having to work like we did, it made making money at something that you like to do a lot more enjoyable.
I see. And breaking horses and everything you're doing, you didn't always have success.
Well, breaking horses, you always had to have
Right.
success. I mean,
But you had setbacks, right? I'm guessing.
I mean, yeah, there was a couple times. I remember breaking my mom's horse out. Just we got up to the top of the hill there, and just started bucking. And I mean, she wasn't gonna quit. And I was riding her fine, but I'm like, this horse isn't giving up. I'm just gonna step off of her. So I went to dismount, and she caught my back leg and sent me right over her head. And as soon as I landed, she's eating grass.
Yeah. 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 Learned some lessons there, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I should have rode her.
Yeah. And a lot of the conversations that we have at the table are, we believe, we've heard numbers that the rodeo mindset is a large percentage of the whole game. The mindset.
Absolutely.
And I want to go there now. The work ethic, the sticking to the job till it's done. No sense complaining. You're going to hit the ground sometime. How did that influence? How did that build your mindset when you get into something you had never done before?
Well, for whatever reason, I set out with a mindset that I could ride anything out there. And I had always rode everything that I ever got on, and I got on some pretty curly horses, but never a rodeo horse
Right.
that was,
Right.
supposed to buck.
Yeah.
And but 8 seconds, I mean.
Yeah. Right.
So when I started, I had a mindset that I was going to ride everything that was put under me.
Okay.
And I was showing Sam, in my book, my first book that I kept. The first year in 1988 when I got out of college, I rode twice at Attica and one of Sammy's rodeos, I think, down in Pennsylvania because they needed riders. And I rode all three. So I rode in there. I says, rode 3, covered 3, 100%.
100% success. So let's go talk a little bit about college. Where'd you go to school? What'd you study? What'd you work on?
So I went to Alfred State for surveying, and I've been a surveyor right through all of it. The only time I wasn't surveying is when I went rodeoing full time, and so it was a good thing to go for, and I've used it my entire life.
Okay. So surveying.
Yep.
So what does a surveyor do? What's a day in the life of a surveyor?
It has changed dramatically.
Sure.
When I started, I was in land surveying, and we'd go out and survey people's properties, set stakes. There wasn't too much construction, but then in 2000, I started surveying at a construction company. Whole new ball of wax, building roads, bridges, stuff like that. Still using total stations, and now looking back, that's kind of antiquated now. Now we use drones and robots, and I'm building models for bulldozers to grade with.
Really?
Yeah.
So nobody's holding the stake for you anymore?
Not really. No.
No. Isn't that something? GPS and everything has come in.
Yeah.
But still a good field.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Challenging has evolved and become more challenging.
Yes. Yep.
And having to learn new skills.
Oh yeah. I have my son working with me, so he has taught me how to keep up with the times.
Okay. So a lot of studying and that sort of thing? I mean, learning
No.
new softwares or?
We just learn as we go. And,
Yeah.
I think keeping up with times would mean, okay, boy, you do that and
Exactly.
write it down, and I'll put my name to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I could be wrong, but
Yeah.
that's what I would do.
Yeah.
it's a lot of, hey, Garrett, could you help me with this? Hey, Garrett, could you read this for me?
No doubt. So, you mentioned your journals, and for our listeners, he's got a stack that's about 6 inches tall of notebooks, of the spiral notebooks that he brought with him. And we're gonna put him on the spot here in a little bit, where he's gonna talk about the week in the life of a rodeo cowboy and the kind of things he was looking at, and maybe what it cost him to go up and down the road and that sort of thing. So, in your notebook that you just referenced, 1988,
Yep.
you say time to go rodeo.
So I graduated from college, and
Now you're responsible.
right. Well, now I can do what, you know.
Do what you want.
Right. And I was living at home, went to the Attica Rodeo, or I was always going to the Attica Rodeo, but this year I was going to enter. I found out that you could enter, and I found somebody that had bareback rigging. That was what I wanted to do, and I don't know why I picked bareback riding, because I've always ridden in a saddle. I think it was because I couldn't find anybody with a saddle.
Really? That simple?
Yeah.
That simple. Okay.
So I had a bareback rigging and a glove, and it almost fit.
Yeah. Yeah. Spurs. Somebody loaned you some spurs.
I think so. I think so. I don't remember.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know I didn't have any chaps,
No.
but I figured, hey, if you can make money riding bucking horses,
Yeah.
that's what I want to do.
Because you've been doing it your whole life, quite
Yeah.
frankly. Right.
Right. Yeah.
So, do you remember that first bronc?
Oh yes.
Setting your rigging. Who helped you? Do you remember?
I don't know if anybody helped me. There must have been somebody, because I was like, well, how do you get this on here in the chute, And then somebody showed me a hook, and
Okay.
I hooked and I got her. I knew how to put it. I knew how to put a saddle on, so I put it on like a saddle. I'm like,
yeah.
well, this must go here,
Yeah. So learning as you go, on the job training.
Now, just for the record, it's people like that will make my hair gray. Could you imagine? Just not knowing. Okay, we're coming to you in 3 horses. Okay, and it's. Actually, this is a true story. I was at a high school doing a high school rodeo once, and I was on the other side of the chutes, and I said, "We're coming to you next over there." Yeah, we're ready. And I was just looking. I thought something isn't right, But I didn't think much of it, And we're coming to you next. Yep. I get over there, and kid gets on, and open the gate. Well, he had never had his rigging tied off, and it just came back, and like they killed the poor kid. It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
He had it ran around there.
Yeah.
And when I first seen it, I didn't look when I went over there, but when I glanced over, I must have caught it, but it didn't register. And of course, a lot doesn't register with me. But but that simple as that.
Yeah.
Go to a school. If you don't learn anything else, learn how to put your equipment on right, guys.
And we've had Mike. We had Mike on here. He goes to the National High School Rodeo Association finals in Little Britches, I guess it was.
Right.
Had never been on a bronc before, and borrows a bronc saddle. I said, "How did you learn?" Oh, there was pictures in a magazine. There was a book, and so nobody's helping you. Nobody's telling you how to wedge your hand in. Nothing.
Nope.
Yeah.
Not that I remember. I mean, there could have been, but it was, when you first start riding, also you don't remember much of the ride.
Right.
It all goes so fast.
Yeah.
And all I could remember, I don't know about Sammy, but it was mostly black.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I couldn't remember a thing. Now, as you ride a lot, things slow way down.
You bet.
And
you bet.
And it's hard to explain, but I don't remember much about that ride. All I remember is I am going to make it to that whistle.
You bet. You bet.
And I probably didn't ride very pretty.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't even know about the mark out rules, so I'm sure I wasn't spurring them.
Yeah. Yeah. So for our listeners, talk about the mark out rule, because you learned this after you walked back to the chutes after you made your ride.
Right. So I got a no score, and I was pretty upset about that because I knew I made it to the whistle. And I said, why didn't they score? Why didn't I get a score? And somebody, a hand, whoever it was, said, "Well, you missed him out," and I didn't know what that meant. I was there when he came out,
Yeah.
and they said, "Oh, you gotta mark the horse out," and I had no idea. So I had to learn what the mark out rule was. So when the horse front feet hit the ground, your spurs have to be over the break of the shoulders and in contact with the horse.
First jump after they leave the chute.
Yep.
Yep. Yep. After that, doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
But if you don't do that thing, what happens?
Yep. 0.
0. Doesn't matter how pretty you rode. You could be 92 points.
Yep.
So a little bit more learning on the job. So once somebody explained that to you and you went, oh, okay, got it.
Yep. So the next night I had another horse.
Okay.
And I'm like, well, we're going to have to try this out. And the gate opened and I marked him out.
Yeah.
And I got a score. And I had a like a side bet, I guess. Doc Van Buren said if I got a score, he'd give me $50.
Okay.
So back then, that was a good chunk of change.
You bet.
And that's what I used to buy my first set of bareback spurs.
Really? That the $50 you won that weekend?
Yep.
I'll be darned. So 1988, 2 horses in Attica, and then I believe from your journal, you also went to Pennsylvania.
So I believe Sam called me on the, or somehow I found out that Sam needed riders in somewhere down in Pennsylvania, and
You don't have that in your notebook? You just know you went to Pennsylvania?
I bet it was Smethport.
Smethport, Pennsylvania. Yep.
Okay. And how did you do it? Yep, you got it there. What do you have the date?
I don't. It was still in '88.
Okay.
No dates.
It would have been right about second weekend of August.
Okay. Because Attica's first weekend.
Right. It wasn't the same weekend, but it would have been about the second or third weekend.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you got on 3 horses, bang, bang, bang.
Yep.
Yeah. And then the rest of the year?
So in Smethport,
Yeah.
my brother decides he's going to ride bucking horses too. And
He's younger.
he's younger, but always bigger. He's a big son of a gun.
Okay.
And somehow, I think he was going to use my rigging too. And luckily, he got on his horse after I got on my horse. So I rode and scored 62 points. And then we had to hurry up and get the rigging off and put it on his horse. And I'm sure his hand was bigger than mine, so the rigging probably did fit better. But he got off the side of his horse, and I think he hit every panel with his head.
Oh, wow. Got hung up?
Well,
Kinda.
off to the side, yeah.
Yeah.
It
And,
didn't let go. You know, sometimes when you don't know what you're doing,
I
you-
see.
you-
I see.
You grip and
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Okay. So still kind of in position, but just tilted off the side.
and dun, 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 dun.
Oh,
Yeah.
my goodness. And, of course, he had his helmet on.
No,
No.
I've never worn a helmet.
Well, why would you need to, right?
Bull riding, bronc riding, probably should have in a couple of spots, but
No vest back then. No protective vests. No.
and still didn't have chaps, I don't think.
Yeah. Whose rigging were you riding with at that point?
Still the same kids.
Borrowed.
Yep.
Okay.
And that cured my brother.
Okay.
He was done.
He says, I'm done.
Yeah. That's.
Could you remember being there? He got hit.
Oh
pretty-
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah. And he was always one to tell me, that I should quit too because, you didn't want to turn 25 and be in a wheelchair.
Yeah.
So-
That's true. Well, good point, right?
No.
Well, I mean, so that wraps up 1988.
Yep.
From your journal, how's 89? How does 89 look?
'89, got my ARA card.
Okay.
Must be.
That's
because-
American Professional Rodeo Association.
Yep.
Okay.
So in '89, I started Mr. Phillips, Ed Phillips.
Ed Phillips.
I was
Okay.
going out with his niece. And so I happened to meet Ed Phillips, found out he was a bareback rider too, fairly handy one.
Yeah.
And he told me what I needed to buy, and he says you should get on some practice horses. So I started riding up at the ranch.
You did.
Rusty
up at
Rusty McRae's.
up. Oh, at the ranch at the McRae's.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I rode up there for, I guess, 2 years, it says. So
You did. So practice and
practice,
that sort of thing.
Yeah. And '89, I bought my APRA card, and I entered my first rodeo, and I think it was the first rodeo of the year. It was in Romney, West Virginia, and I drove there myself.
Holy cow, that's a lot
remember
of
that.
going.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well, I was
you were into it.
going to rodeos.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right.
And I drove there myself.
Yeah.
At least I knew how to put the rigging on, like this, and I knew
You've
the
been practicing.
mark out rule,
Yep.
and I had been practicing. And I got there, and I got out of the truck, and I saw this guy with his rigging bag open, and it said Southeast Circuit Finals Champion or something on his jacket, and I was like, that kind of blew me out of the water.
Yeah.
But it ended up to be Freddie.
Who's in the Warsaw area?
I didn't know it at the time.
Yeah. You hadn't met him through any of this because
No.
he was living southeast at that point.
He was still living in Tonawanda, I think.
He
but
was.
He was rodeoing down in the southeast.
Yeah.
Every winter.
So you hadn't come across him.
Nope.
No, he was down south. Okay. And he's the next town over or whatever from where you grew up, and strike up a conversation at that point.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think I did. I think I asked him, because this is my first rodeo now, my first card carrying rodeo, and I think I asked him, I'm here for the rodeo. Do you have to do anything? Check in? Or he says, yeah, you gotta go pay your fees at the secretary's office. I was like, where's that? What do you do? So he told me to take my money over there and give it to her. He knew he'd end up with it that day. So
Right.
You want to pay double?
Yeah. Just save you a step. Just give it to me, right?
Right, yeah.
And of course, Freddie Backlas, great rodeo cowboy. I want to get into that a little bit later too, about some of the stories with him. So, '89, you're in Virginia, and you meet Freddie, who's riding the southeast. What's the rest of the year look like? How'd you do at that rodeo, by the way?
didn't place.
Didn't place.
I
Rode
did.
your horse.
I rode him, yeah, and rode the next couple. I was doing good up until I think the 10th horse I got bucked off on, and I don't know, somewhere in there it says I was 11 out of 13, and I had the percentage 85%. And
Yeah.
it was all about riding. It
Yeah.
was all about
For sure.
staying on the horse,
For sure.
because that's what I thought it was all about.
Yeah.
Until I met some of these guys and got to know them. Of course, I always knew about Mike Swearingen because we moved to Dale, and that's where Mike was from at the
Okay.
time, as
Okay.
Dale.
Okay.
And he would drive by, and I think he had the bug shield that said "Cowboys for Christ."
Okay.
I think.
Yeah.
And the guys would talk about him at the Dale Valley Autos.
Yeah.
And they would say, yeah, he's going all over the place, and rodeoing all over the place. So kind of early on, 14, 15, I had a job there at the place washing cars, and Mike would drive by, and I'd be like, man, that guy's a superstar, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, where were we?
So that'd been late 80s or late 70s
Late-
probably.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And he was going hard already at that point.
Well, at least that's the way the stories went.
Yeah. No, I
Yeah.
think he was in his career.
Yeah.
So 89, you finish up the year, you ride 11 out of 13, 85%. Pretty successful year. Make any money?
No,
No.
I don't think I'd have to look it up, but I don't know if I made a check that first year.
Okay.
It might have been that first year, but and I remember the first time I placed because I was up in the beginning, like on a Friday, and then and Mike Swearingen called me, and it was early in the morning, like on a Monday, and I answered, and he says, "Hey, Kelly." I says, "Yeah." He says, "I got your check." I'm like, "You got my check? What?" And he's like, "Yeah, you placed at the rodeo. We tied for 6th." And I was like, "Oh, how much is it?"
Yeah.
It was $37 or something.
Yeah. You still have that check, do you, up on the wall somewhere? $37.
No way I cashed that thing. That was going to feed me for 3 weeks.
And you have did you have some expenses in 89, what it was costing you to eat and that sort of thing? Did you keep track of that?
Oh, yeah.
So flip open to that page and tell us some of the expenses you had, because it's expensive going up and down the road. You got entry fees, you got fuel, you got food, you probably sleeping in your truck or your car at the time, Kelly?
Yeah. So in '89, I was traveling by myself. I didn't understand rodeo because I'd never been in rodeo. I've never been around rodeo except for Attica. I didn't get that you actually traveled with people to save on expenses.
Yeah.
In it, and so early on I would write down my mileage and because I knew that I'd be claiming it on my taxes because my attorney said I had to. So
All your winnings. $37.
I lost every year, so it was good to claim it on
Welcome
my
to the
taxes.
rodeo
Well,
world.
yeah. You need to go to more rodeos.
So
Make it up in volume.
Yeah. I was just going to say that. That's the way I do business.
Yeah. It's like the guy, he's selling watermelons and he's losing 25 cents on every truckload that he sells, each watermelon. And somebody says, "What are you going to do to make that up?" He says, "Get a bigger truck." So what? Yeah, go ahead.
So I should have done my homework a lot sooner, but so the second rodeo in '89. So Fred must have taught me in a matter of a couple rodeos. Hey, you can travel with somebody,
Yeah.
because it says, well, my food cost was $4.07 for this one rodeo.
Getting there and back, right?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
I need to be on that diet.
Yeah.
And the gas cost, it says Fred, $11, Kelly $11, and
You bet. You were running the kitty, weren't you? Yeah.
Someone, I can't read their name, $8 for some reason. I don't know. He
So
must have been slacking.
Picked them
Jumped
up
in
on the
later.
way.
Yeah.
Jumped in later. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was $4.07 for the food cost, and then at the next one it was $10. So
Oh wow. You were living large.
He won $37. He's going to eat.
I was traveling with somebody I could afford it.
Yeah. That's exactly. So you jumped in with Fred. Then you met him early in '89, and you're hauling with him second or third rodeo after that.
It must have only been. I don't think we were traveling together really regular that early.
Yeah.
Because I would have been getting better scores than this.
Yeah. So you're working full time. You're doing survey work, and doing the rodeos on the weekends, right?
Yep.
And going pretty hard in '89. How many total shows, or how many total rodeos, how many total broncs did you get on?
Oh.
We got to get you on an Excel spreadsheet here.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
So
He's got a summary page.
the ranch I got on 7, looks like.
Okay, for the year. Okay.
And then in the barebacks in '89, it says I got on 22 and rode 20.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So average of 89%. And then the saddle broncs, I must have rode 2 saddle broncs because it says I covered 1 and rode 2. And I was 50%. and I think that was in Attica, if I'm not mistaken. And both feet hung up in the stirrups, and that sucker had me over his head and dragging my. And I think there's a picture somewhere. That bronc had his head right in my chest, and he was dragging me through
And
the
your
arena.
feet are still in
and
the
my
stirrups.
feet were still in the stirrups.
That's a time when you say, I should have paid attention to what my brother said.
That's probably when I said, enough of that saddle.
I would think so. So you buy your card in '89.
89. Yep.
When did you qualify for your first AFR? Because on my records, I show you qualified 10 times to the American finals. Right?
I believe 91.
91, so 2 years later.
Yep.
So in '91, are you traveling heavy with Fred? Jumped in, where'd the deal going down the road?
I'm thinking I was traveling with Fred, not going to probably as many rodeos. I remember I traveled with Fred some, watching him do his thing.
Yeah.
I went down to Florida with him to the Southeast Circuit Finals for the PRCA.
Really? To
And-
watch him compete?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And that would have been 91-ish?
I'm
90,
thinking
91?
90, somewhere right in there. Yeah. Early on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that, and what'd you learn from that trip?
Well, he probably charged me gas. I'm thinking.
Did even though you just ride along? No.
Yeah.
Yeah?
I gotta believe.
Yeah.
Just knowing Freddie,
Yeah.
we probably split the gas.
Split the gas. Okay. And
No,
just, yeah.
but down there, we went to the finals, and he got on just a bronc that was no fun, but still made him still scored good and did good at the finals. I don't think he won it, but
Yeah.
he was right there. You know.
Okay.
It just opened my eyes to like how big rodeo was. It wasn't just Attica,
Yeah.
but I had been going to some places, that were a lot like Attica. But then when I went to the finals, I was like, wow, because the Coliseum was full and
And that would have been down Farm Show Arena, 91. In Harrisburg?
no, this is Southeast.
Oh, Southeast. I'm sorry.
yep.
I jumped to the American Finals Rodeo.
Yep.
You're talking about Southeast
Yep.
PRCA Circuit Finals.
So that was right in that same time period. But yes, the Farm Show Arena, that was so the
91.
first year I went. I don't know, did they take 15 or 10? I think 15. Top 15?
12.
Top 12.
Top 12.
And I was 9th every round. So I stayed on.
Yeah.
and
Consistent.
I was consistent, and it was my first finals. So,
And that was a fun building to rodeo in.
oh yeah.
That was a big deal back then. I mean, good crowds, and what was it, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I believe?
Yep. Had to take off a little bit of work on Friday to get down there in time.
Yeah.
And
Was that ever an issue?
it did. It was.
It was.
In 97, was trying to remember this too. I think it was in '96. I had gotten my PRCA card, and my boss at the time, he was always pretty good at letting me take time off, and it was always a Friday or a Monday, and then I'd work during the week, pretty steady. And but we always had long weekends, and by that time we were traveling hard. And he called me in the office one day and he says, "You're gonna have to make a decision, Paige." He says, "You're gonna be a surveyor or you're gonna be a cowboy."
Yeah.
And I'm glad he made me make that decision.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I came back the next day and I told him that I was gonna be a cowboy.
Okay. Okay.
And he said, "Well, all right." And I took off that winter and moved to Florida and rodeoed full time.
Okay. Did not know that. So Fred's down there at the time?
I think he came down for a couple of rodeos, but I don't remember him being down there that year. But I rodeoed down there at every rodeo that I could make it to.
Yeah.
Entered Kissimmee, but I didn't have enough points or whatever and I didn't get the draw to rodeo there. But I hit everything else in Florida, and came back up in May. And one of the girls at the bank, when I was cashing my checks from rodeo, she said, they're hurting over there. At my old place of business, and she says, "You should go over and talk to your boss or to John."
Yeah.
So I went back and talked to John, and we made a deal. I'd survey when I could, and I was going to get whatever time off I needed. No pay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just
yeah. Yeah.
And that was the arrangement I wanted from the get-go. So,
Right. But a lot of learning going down to Florida.
yeah,
Yeah. I mean, because you're not working anywhere.
right. It was what I refer to in as some of the best year of my life.
It was.
Really
Okay.
Because everything depended on how I did at rodeos. I mean, that was what I was living on, and just as free as you could be.
Yeah.
I was living out of the van, and I met Mr. Edwards.
Norm?
Norm Edwards.
Okay. He's from
down
New
there.
York, right?
No, he's from Florida,
Florida.
and his sister Darlene Fletcher.
Oh, yeah.
Who was
okay.
Mike Fletcher's wife.
Yes.
They had a ranch down there called the Triple Cross Ranch.
Yes.
And I parked my van there, and they had a shower and a bathroom, and a payphone.
Yeah.
That was all I needed.
That's all you needed.
And when I was down there, I did odd jobs to help out during the week. I wasn't doing anything anyways. So, and I would bullfight at their show, and
Really? You fought bulls?
clowned a little bit too.
Did you? Were you a funny man?
Yeah.
What was your favorite joke?
Oh, I don't know. I remember one day it was raining, or one day it was at the show. It had been raining so hard, there was like 3 inches of rain standing in the arena, and it was sand. I mean, so it had been just monsoony. And Shane Carson was down there, and I got a knee board from somebody and a snorkel, in a snorkel mask, and he drug me in the arena on the knee board and around the arena. It was fun.
So you're down there. You're not fully employed. You're living off rodeo money.
That's it.
How'd that change the game for you?
I mean, it made you bow up a little bit. Yeah, I mean, I remember Clemson rodeo. It was in April, I think, and it was a 2-header, and I was getting a little light, and I had enough money to make it home after entry fees, and I said, "This is it." if I don't do good here, I got to head home.
And home being
New York,
New
and
York.
probably getting a job because rodeos hadn't started yet. They wouldn't start up until May or so. And that was in Clemson, South Carolina, and I won the first go and won the second go, and I was back in Florida.
You were back in Florida. So now let me circle back to the work ethic. Let me circle back to the grit that you talked about. I mean, you're down to just enough to get to the house. If I
Pretty
don't do
much.
it here, I'm headed to the house. And a lot of folks would get lost in that, could get lost in that, too much pressure, whatever it might be. And you think about too much, it's going to ruin your riding, right? Because you're not concentrating on the job at hand. How did the stuff you learned growing up and through college and everything, and coming down to that, say what you will, I either do it here or I go home?
I mean, of course, it helped.
Yeah.
And it helped. I drew 2 great horses.
Yeah.
Blue Jean was the first horse. And after I won on that one, that loosened it up a lot for the second go.
Okay.
And I got another good horse, and I was riding against some of the better guys in the Southeast too.
I was going to say that time of the year, right? Not a lot of rodeos around, so you're drawing in a lot of toughs.
Mm-hmm. And I had another incentive. I had a girl down in Florida, so.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and she was with me actually.
Oh, she was.
So
okay.
I kind of had to go back to at least. Well, her dad was in South Carolina hunting, so if I had to go home, I had to drop her off with her dad and then head home.
Yeah.
So.
Oh,
Yeah.
now that's incentive.
That's incentive.
That's incentive.
There's a lot.
If I don't win, I got to go back and see her dad with a gun
Yep.
and drop her off.
Yep.
Okay.
Probably in the truck. The
okay.
dad's truck. She's going to sit there until he finishes up his hunt. Probably kind of cold.
Kind of hunting for you.
He's a good guy though.
Yeah.
He I came back to Florida, back to home base, Triple Cross, and he had changed the tires on my van.
Oh, wow. Nice.
And
In a good way, right?
yeah, I mean brand new. There's brand new tires on my van.
Nice. Nice.
And
Man.
and I said, wow, who did this? And he says, if you're going to be driving my daughter around, you're not going to be driving on those things that you had on there.
And those little bitty, we think of it now, 4 tires, right? But man, to at that time means a lot. Mm-hmm. Means a lot.
Yeah, and he gave me so I ended up spending more time at their house than I did at the ranch, and I drove his kids around to different things, school.
Yeah.
He helped me out a lot. He gave me some jobs, and still a good friend.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And this is 97. You're in Florida.
96, 97.
96,
I think
97.
96 to 97, yeah.
So you come home when? You come back to New York when?
When the rodeo started.
So
in May.
In
Yep.
May. You come back and you've got what on your mind? What was the approach?
Let's win the Northeast.
Okay. And Freddie's all in? He's saying time to go?
Freddie had tailed in the PRCA. He wasn't going to as many PRCAs. He was still hitting the ARAs hard and in the IRAs. But I wanted to win the PRCA. So I was still traveling with him, but sometimes if there was, more PRCA rodeos, I would not travel with him.
Yeah.
And that got worse and worse as because in '97 I did win it, and
The first frontier circuit.
yeah,
Which is up here in the Northeast for
Yep.
sure. And why'd that get worse?
Freddie was going to
Not
more
traveling.
ARAs.
Okay.
I was going to more PRCAs, so we'd still get together and if we could.
Yeah.
But I was going to Cowtown a lot
Okay.
to get the points.
Well, that's a long trip.
Yeah. It's 5 hours
Yeah.
one way,
Yeah.
and that's doing 80.
Yeah.
I was gonna
5.
say that you're on a fast track there.
Yeah.
Especially you hit Lancaster.
He must have known some shortcuts.
Yeah.
I wasn't hauling no horses, that's
Yeah,
for sure.
that's for sure. That's for sure. So, talk a little bit about Fred. I know you met him down in the Southeast Circuit when you're just getting started. Talk a little bit about traveling with Fred, philosophy of Fred. How would you describe Fred for our listeners?
So, Freddie was always, he was frugal. Frugal. I pushed a pickup truck that had run out of gas and just passed 4 or 5 gas stations across 6 lanes of traffic because it was a penny cheaper at the one we were going to.
Okay.
That's just, and Michelle and her new Lewis was just a baby. She was steering.
They were in the van with you.
She was steering and we were pushing,
Okay.
So, but Freddie was always business. A lot of people thought that I was arrogant or whatever because I never hang around, or I was more shy than anything. And Fred got me out of my shell a little bit, and but we'd go to a rodeo, and when the bareback riding was over, we're on the road. There wasn't any time for, once in a while we'd stick around for the saddle broncs to pull somebody, or if we had time we might stay, but we were always trying to make as many as we could, and it didn't matter if it was from Virginia to Vermont the next day. We were hustling. Mm-hmm. Probably the best guy that I could have hooked up with. He always tried to find positive. Even if I had a bad ride, he'd say, "Well, you had a good mark out," or whatever. Always found the positive. And he was a Christian, so we're like-minded. And I firmly believe that God had his hand on us quite a few times, because just some of the things that happened, avoiding accidents, getting to a show late, but there was a crash on the way that we missed, and but rodeo wise, he'd always tell me what I had to work on. He taught me how to go down the road inexpensively. Always ride hungry was his philosophy.
Really? Okay.
Always ride hungry.
Hungry and having not eaten, or
Every-
hungry because I got to win?
Everything.
Everything.
Yeah, we would never stop for any kind of food until we were done.
Yeah.
And then his favorite spot was Friendly's, and he would get a Jim Dandy. And I don't know, that Sunday was about a foot tall. And I was like, there's no possible way that he's going to finish that. And he would.
He'd
Oh,
eat the.
he wouldn't leave it.
That's right. Yeah. If he spent $4.50 on a Sunday, he wasn't going to leave a bit.
That was kind of the celebration of the whole run.
Well, yeah, if we happened to cross Friendlies. Until, yeah. But traveling with him alone, I could write a book. And then so sometimes Shell would come along, and then Lewis. We went to Cheyenne in 96, I think. It was the 100th year anniversary.
Okay.
of Cheyenne, and we made the trip out there, and both of us rode. Didn't make it back to the short go, but we rode in Cheyenne.
Yeah.
And rode them handy,
Yeah.
but just didn't have the horses. And we're from New York. I mean,
Sure. But that's a big run.
that's a big run. Yeah. So, and again, it was just out there, and we did see Yellowstone because there was a day in between our rides. So we went up to Yellowstone, and then we drove back. I mean, it wasn't it wasn't ever a vacation. It was always business. Yeah.
So did you split the driving up? How were you going down
Oh,
the
yeah.
road? Okay.
Yeah. Michelle would take her turn too,
Yeah.
Lewis was just a pup still.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's only one time I remember not pulling my weight driving. And that was with Mike and Robin, and I was riding. I was traveling with Mike Swearingen. I mean, this is what I always wanted to do.
Yeah.
And it had to have been early on. And he says, now we're going to be, about 2:00, you're going to have to take over driving, 2:00 in the morning.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So I'm traveling with Mike Swearingen. I mean,
You've made the big time.
I'm walking on clouds, you know.
Bet. You bet.
But, so I don't know. We had to have already hit a rodeo. I don't know. And he said I was going to have to take over driving it too. Well, I'd been driving a little bit, So, and I've always been around horses. He had a truck with a camper, and then we were hauling Robin's horse. And so we stopped at a gas station, and I got a Mountain Dew. And then I thought, well, I better get a coffee. So I had a Mountain Dew and a coffee, and I'm driving.
You're driving. 2:00 in the morning.
2:00 in the morning. I'm going to the rodeo, riding with Mike Swearingen. Got a barrel horse.
Yeah.
So I'm driving. And I'm drinking the Mountain Dew, drinking coffee.
Lots of caffeine.
Yeah. So my hands start shaking a little bit. And I'm like, well, this is weird. And I'm like, oh, it's just nerves, So I'm driving a little bit farther, and my hands start like bouncing off of the steering wheel. I mean, I'm going into full blown, and I'm like, you can't wake Mike up. You got to drive, And I'm literally, my whole body is just shaking now, and I'm like, what is going on? I'm having a seizure. I've gotta wake Mike up. I'm gonna dump the rig here.
Yeah.
So I'm like, Mike. Hey, Mike. He wakes up. He's like, what's going on? I'm like, I don't know what's going on, but I'm shaking so bad I think I'm having a seizure. He's like, is that your Mountain Dew? I'm like, yeah. He says, is that your coffee? Yeah. You drinking them both? Yeah. He says, pull this thing over. So then I realized
Caffeine overload.
Overdose, yes.
Yeah, overdose.
And
yeah.
so
Wow, that's a trick I never learned.
I know. After
What
that,
is going on? I could have learned this a while ago.
never had me drive again with the horse behind us.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So our listeners love traveling stories, and that's a great traveling stories. Any stand out or any adventure stand out in the sport of rodeo that you can tell us about?
Well, a favorite of Freddie's was it was earlier on because I was not used to traveling, but Fred Backlas, Rusty McRae, Joel Krushka, who was a bareback rider from up here, and myself in a van, black van, Freddie's. Going down to Tennessee was the first rodeo of the run, and I think we had 4 that weekend. So it was a big weekend. Hit West Virginia hot, and they said, "This is the first time you've been over this bridge. You've got to do this inaugural thing, or I don't know what they called it, but they said every new guy's got to do this."
Okay.
And I'm afraid of heights. So they stop at this, they pull off, and at the time there was no really, now there's a parking lot there, and it's a attraction. You can walk underneath the bridge all the way across, I guess, and it's an attraction. They allow people to do it. At this juncture, you had to break through the fence and get on this catwalk that went underneath the bridge, and there's nothing underneath you. It's the tallest suspension bridge.
Wow.
You know, it's like 3 Statue of Liberties high or whatever.
Oh my goodness.
Over the New River.
Yeah.
So, being afraid of heights.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a long ways down, and when the trucks went over, it would bounce probably a foot. So I just wanted off.
Yeah.
We went about a third of the way over, and I was like, okay, I'm done.
Yeah.
Good times, but let's go.
Yeah.
So we got out of there, and it's hot. And we're like, well, why don't we go down and swim in the river? We got time.
Yeah.
Which was not usual. So we said, yeah, okay. So we drove all the way down, and met these people that were coming out of the river, you know, and they said, oh, yeah, it's great. Swimming's great. So we all jump in, and we're floating down the river on our backs, not a care. It's cool, blowing water in the air. And Freddie was all of a sudden says, what's that sound? And it sounded like a train was coming.
Yeah.
Well, there was a trestle that we'd gone in by, and you couldn't see that anymore. And he says, it's rapids, boys. Swim for shore.
Oh, wow.
Fred was
A good swimmer.
Olympia swimmer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Krushka was the closest to that shore.
Yeah.
I was the farthest away. I hadn't done any swimming. I was just floating down the river. And on this side was a sheer rock wall.
Oh, my
So you
gosh.
weren't getting out over there. Rusty was next over. I swam past him, and I knew I wasn't going to make it because I could see the rapids coming.
Oh, wow.
So I slowed my heart down as much as I could because I knew I was going to be underwater. Yeah. And I got...
You hit the rapids.
Yeah. There was people on the rocks, some girls and stuff, and they were woo, woo, woo. And
Okay. Yeah.
And when Fred told the story, it was always a lot more fun than when I told it because, you know, he would spend most of the story laughing because he just thought that was the funniest thing. But I went under. I got flushed, and by the time I came up, you could hardly see me.
Oh, wow.
Fred saw my shorts when I finally beached on the rock. So I thought I was dead.
Yeah.
And I had spent every ounce of strength that I had trying to get out of that river, and so we had to ride. And they pulled Rusty out of the river face down, spinning around in an eddy.
So he had hit the rapids also.
He had hit the rapids, but he went the rough route. He didn't get flushed. He hit every rock in them rapids all the way down through. And I was just underwater, and I was in the deep part and got flushed.
Wow.
Best way I can explain it. So we had to ride in Tennessee that night, and I could barely put my hand in the rigging. I stayed on, didn't ride pretty at all. I don't think I placed. And Rusty, I think, bucked off, and the bull ripped his shirt off with his horn. Oh, wow. And they had him sitting outside the chutes, and I mean, he looked like he had just gotten beaten by Mike Tyson, and
bruises and that sort of cuts, abrasions.
Well, red. By then it wasn't bruises yet, but it was red all over
from the rocks.
From the rocks, yeah. And they were like, "Man, that bull hooked you bad." Rusty said it wasn't the bull; he only hit me once.
Oh my gosh!
So that's Freddie's favorite story. And when we got home, he told that story to Michelle, and I remember sitting at the bottom of the stairs. He was still living in his mom's place, and him telling the story to Michelle and just laughing hysterically. He couldn't hardly tell the story. And I'm sitting down there thinking, I don't remember it being funny at all. I mean, I couldn't take a shower for a month. I didn't want anything to do with water. Didn't want to drink it. I didn't even want to flush the toilet because it sounded just like the rapids.
Oh my gosh.
It was traumatizing.
Yeah.
And I don't think I might not have placed that whole weekend.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I was whipped.
Just take me home.
Yeah.
Wow. That's quite a story.
Yeah.
Now, I got a question for you. I guess you're probably looking at deer, huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
Deer over his shoulder?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's my backyard,
right in
front
the
yard in
yard.
the morning. They'll come over this
Yeah.
way, and there's a fox out there this afternoon. I'd knock on the window, and he'd look, and I'd stand still, and he'd just sit there. And then I'd knock again, and he'd get his attention. But Joel Kruska, I've never traveled with Joel. But I bet he would be a hoot. Oh, what a funny, nice guy. Oh, I really like that man.
So they had me convinced that they had left Rusty at the gas station. We stopped, and I didn't see Rusty in the van. I was driving, and Joel was in the front seat, I think. And they said, "Oh, he's not in here. Take off." I'm like, "No, I can't do that." And they said, "No. He had his chance. He knew, get going." And they made me take off without Rusty. And I'm driving down the road, and I'm like, "This is bad. How is he going to get home?" Yeah. And Joel is over there. "Don't you worry about him. He knows. You got to get back in the van." And I'm like, I'm taking mental notes. I'm like, "Holy cow! Don't ever be late." So pretty soon she's going to come through the window there, Sam.
What, the doe? Yeah. Oh my, she is right outside. She's watching, isn't she?
Yeah. If I could shoot, say no, I live here.
Yeah.
Oh, we're safe at this house.
Yeah, that's for sure. That's for sure.
So we had to go. I don't know. It had been 15 minutes, and I'm thinking all this time that I left poor Rusty, and he's going to hate me for the rest of his life.
Yeah.
Because I mean, we were out of state.
Yeah.
And I left him at a daggum filling station. And he was in the van all the way.
He was.
Yeah.
Okay.
But they had me convinced that I still wasn't ever late getting out to the van.
No doubt. Don't want to get left behind.
But Joel, he was a hoot, man. It just funny all the time. And him and Freddie come down through the bank of that river just laughing, tripping over themselves because they thought that was the funniest thing that ever happened. And yeah, but heck of a bareback rider.
Joel was.
Yeah.
Oh, he was so funny. Yeah, he's a good guy.
Yeah. And talk about great bareback riders, right, Freddie?
Freddie was he was. I don't like to use the word awesome, but he was pretty consistent at winning.
Yeah.
And I like to toward the when we were traveling a lot, we were always or pretty consistent at 1 and 2. And once in a while I'd get that 1, but most of the time it was 2.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, but as long as the money stayed in the truck, we were doing good.
Yeah.
And he was consistently, of course, that's all he did for a living his whole life.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he was living on, you know, he was making a living.
You bet.
And, you know,
That was his livelihood, right?
Yeah.
If you don't win, you don't pay your bills.
Nope.
Yeah.
And he taught me how to win.
And what does that mean? I hear that. We hear that. You got to learn how to win. How did he teach that?
So I'm not the best bareback rider. I was consistent, but I wouldn't consider myself, you know, great by any means. But I think that probably solid 80% of it is in your mind. You got to have talent. You got to have balance. You got to know how to put your rigging on. I mean,
Right.
but you got to believe that you're going to win. You have to know that, and that's what I tell the kids that I try to help out. You know, number one, safest place on a horse is on the horse. Mm-hmm. Don't get off until you're ready to get off.
Yeah.
And the same thing with a bull.
Yeah.
There's no reason to get off a bull. No reason to get bucked off a bull.
Yeah.
You're going to get hurt if you do.
Yeah.
So that's number one. Safest place on a horse is on a horse.
Yep.
And number two, if you're in competition, you have to know that you're going to win, or, you know,
That you can compete.
and yeah, and it was funny. You know, sometimes you'd be at a rodeo and you would feel it. It was the
What
way.
does that mean?
It was the way you walked. It was a feeling. And then some rodeos you'd go to and you just could not get that feeling.
Okay.
And it wasn't because of the rodeo. I've been at rodeos where I drew a good horse, and I might have even done well, but I couldn't get that feeling that you knew you had to have by the time you were, let's say, mature enough in the industry to realize that. I don't know how it is with other guys, but yeah, for me it was, you had to know that you were going to win.
Well, and I'm a firm believer that that's one of the reasons I had enough is when I had to get myself up to ride instead of calm myself down because I was at a rodeo. And it's like, oh, okay, there's something the matter here.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And,
Something. Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. Motivation or something, right?
yeah, the desire.
Desire.
You know, there comes a point where, you know, the desire kind of fades away
Yeah.
and the agility fades away. You can still ride,
Right.
but the quickness, you know, when you're sitting in the chute and say, the horse starts to flip, and when you're old, this is going to hurt.
Yeah. Yeah.
But when you're young, you just bounce out of there and stand next to it and then get back in there.
Yeah.
But yeah, the desire to enjoy what you're doing, because
So Kelly, is that the feeling? What Sam just talked about? You just had the desire. You had the energy. When you say the feeling, how might you describe that to somebody so they'd recognize it when it was in them?
I don't know. I heard somebody mention, and it was about a football team, that they had swagger.
Swagger.
And that kind of, I don't know, it kind of fit it, but not really. But it was a difference, you know. You when you had that mindset, and you confidence, I guess. And it was a fine line between that and being arrogant.
Sure.
Because you didn't want to wear that on the outside,
Sure.
but you had to have it, you know, inside.
and that's a lot of it is confidence. And you know, when you are confident, you don't have to show it on the outside because then you go to arrogance or whatever.
Yeah.
But if you know and it's in there, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you might joke around or whatever. If it's more of a, with me, it was more of a joking, keep it into myself, laugh. But I knew what I was going to do. I was very confident in the ability the ability to know that. Not so much I was going to win, but I was prepared.
Okay.
To do my job.
Okay.
And you can't judge them, you can't draw them. But I was prepared. And that's when you're the most confident.
You bet. To do what you can do.
And that goes back to wrestling. Practice, drill, have your mindset to confidence.
So, and we talk a lot about this. This is one of our favorite subjects. Rodeo wrestling and rodeo racing and wrestling. We call it the 3 R's. Okay.
We don't spell too good.
We don't. But it's.
And I just caught on to that because I don't spell very well either.
But it's something happens where the mind quiets. It's the only thing I got to do. And more importantly, the conscious mind allows you to do what you know how to do. Because you can't think in 8 seconds, oh, I got to do this or I got to do that, or right? Did you?
I mean, yeah, after probably 5 or 6 years of riding, things started to slow down.
Sure.
I remember in Pocatello, I drew a real good horse. The second year I was there, Trey was his name, and good bucking horse. And I remember thinking when I was riding, turn that right toe out a little bit more.
Really?
And get it all the way to your rigging. Get those feet down there. And things just slowed down.
Yeah.
Like, I can remember what that horse did on the second jump.
Okay.
And the third jump.
Okay.
To this day.
Yeah.
So it did slow down for me a lot toward the end. But starting out, there was it was all muscle memory and listening for that.
Yeah.
For the tutor.
It takes a while for that muscle memory to kick in, right?
Oh yeah.
I mean, Sam talks about repetition and practice and skills and drills and all that sort of thing. No, this has always been it's just an interesting part, I think, of rodeo, that if a lot of these competitors had some of the knowledge that some of the veterans have, what they learned, how they figured it out, if that could be shared just a little bit, it changes the whole perspective when you show up and you got that swagger, you got that feeling, and you have so much confidence, you just let it roll.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And with enough reps, it slows down.
And it can go exactly the other way.
Mm-hmm.
If you go somewhere you're not used to and you don't know anything and you're stand-backish and you're standoffish, it can work against you.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that for sure. And it had to help. Did you have a pretty good chute procedure? Every time you did it the same way, more or less?
I mean, it depended on pistol. Sam's one of Sam's best bucking horses.
Hard to get out of.
357. You had to treat her a little bit different. You had to pretty much put your hand in without sitting on her, slide and ride. And if you did that, she was first place check.
Yeah.
There's other horses that, it didn't matter. Like 101 would stand there for you. It was one of Camp's
Lytics.
horses. Yeah, Lytics.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good bucking horse. I mean, once that chute opened, just a bucking Hank. But in the chute, perfect gentleman. And so it mattered on the horse.
Yeah.
What your procedure was. and there was a couple that were pretty nasty in the chute. Pistol could be. We always got along pretty good because I watched, what worked on her. So yeah, it changes with the horses.
Yeah.
But pretty much the same, get it right. Fred said, never listen to a contractor. Always pull that rigging just as tight as you can.
Okay.
And
Okay.
I remember Barnes wasn't too fond of that philosophy, but most of the contractors were fine with it,
Yeah.
Just don't pull them too early and
Do what you need to do.
do what you need to do.
You bet. So qualified at the American Finals Rodeo 10 times. You were in the era of Fred. How many championships did he win in the ARA?
That sucker's got 2 more saddles than I've got buckles, I think. It'd be easier to count the times that he didn't.
That he didn't. You bet. And he went on a roll. It was in the teens, right? It was in
yeah.
Yeah. And in 97, you spoke of this, you win the first Frontier Circuit, which required you to travel a little bit more on your own, as you said. What was that like to win that championship?
So before that, in 95, I won the IPRA
Northeast region.
and I went to the Worlds in El Paso, Texas. World Champion Rodeo, they called it. I don't know. Or World's Finals Rodeo.
That was the all-region?
Yeah.
The NARC. The North.
Oh, that was NARC.
Yeah.
That was North America. Okay. Okay.
So there was boys from Australia, Brazil, Mexico, America, Canada. There was 125 in each event.
125 bareback riders.
Yep. And I had a real good horse the first round. Made a tight circle, come right back into the chute, and at one point he had his feet over the back of the chute. And I was third on him.
Really?
Third out of 125.
Holy cow.
Second go, I was in the top 10. I can't remember what happened on the second go, but I was sitting third after the first go, and I was in the top 10. I was coming back to the short
average.
go. In the average.
You were coming back to the short go.
So this is when I learned to hate television because it was on TV. They interviewed us all the people in the top 10. And I had a horse. Of course, didn't know anything about him. Gator, I think was his name. And now I know why. And he had a awful. It didn't track, sun fishing, and I think that I rode him, but it wasn't pretty, and it was just an awful ride. And it was on national television, so
Okay.
it was, and I didn't place. So it was a bad ending, but yeah, we'll just remember that first ride.
Yeah, for sure. What was that like, though? 125. I mean, it was 2 goes, right? Everybody.
No, it was it was 2 goes,
Yeah.
but it was
And then short.
I think 3 nights,
3
for
nights.
each go. So they had a bunch of riders there,
You bet.
and
What do you remember about that time? I knew you described the horses, but what was that like? Big stage?
yeah. So I rode down there with some timies, because there wasn't many rough stock riders coming from our area. I was riding with a steer wrestler. I wish I could remember his name, but I went to open the door. I was sleeping, and I thought that we were at a gas station, so I opened the door, and at that time we didn't need seatbelts. And he reached across and grabbed me, and I woke up, and I was like driving down I-10.
Holy cow.
And
Holy cow. 80 miles an hour.
Carl
Leech.
Leach.
Out of Pennsylvania.
Yep.
Okay.
Big sucker.
Big boy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when he clobbered me in the chest so I wouldn't go out the truck.
Lucky he didn't stop your heart.
I know it.
Ah,
But yeah, big stage, and when I got third, I was like, so at this point I only have my ARA card and my IRA card, and people were telling me I needed to get my PRCA card, and I was on the fence about it. I prayed about it, just didn't know. But when I got third there, I was like, I'm gonna get my PRCA card.
There you go.
So I called from the hotel and got my card, and my number was P because it was a permit 22777.
Okay.
And I was like, okay,
There you go.
thank you
Yeah.
for that confirmation.
Yeah.
And so that's when I got my PRCA card in 97. I had been to Florida and rodeoed down there, and I was riding good. Probably the best that I was ever riding. Like I say, I don't consider myself a great by any means. I was consistent.
Yeah.
And that's how I won most of my things that I won. Won all the major rodeos in the Northeast. North Washington, I won that 4 times. Plymouth Meeting,
Gary.
Gary, Kellettville
Yeah.
on J horses.
Yeah.
The first time I entered Kellettville, I learned what a J horse was.
You bet.
He stood probably a foot and a half over the chute.
Yep. Big horses.
I had to tie my ladicals on the D's of the cinch, both sides.
Yeah.
And when I marked that thing out, it was like hitting a brick wall.
Yeah.
Thought for sure halfway through the ride that I had a bloody nose.
Yeah.
I heard that tutor, and I let go out the back door, landed on the ground, and I took my hand and wiped my nose, thinking that it was bleeding profusely. It wasn't. It was snot. He jerked the snot out of me.
I've heard that description, but literally.
Literally. Jerked the snot out of me.
So when somebody asks you about him, you say, he'll jerk.
The snot. Yep. That was Skyline, and that was the biggest horse that I have ever been on, ever cared to ride. And just muscle. Steroids and muscle.
Yeah. Big horses. J.
Yep.
So 97, you got your permit. You fill your permit pretty quickly because you go on in that same year, you win the first Frontier Circuit. You can't do that on a permit. You had to buy your card.
So 90. No, I bought it in 90. I went to the World Finals Rodeo in 95.
95.
I won the circuit in 97.
97. Okay.
So it's 2 years of.
All right.
Yep.
All right. So you fill your permit.
The first year.
Yeah.
Yep.
Get you a card. And was this the first time you'd qualified to the first Frontier Circuit Finals?
No. I qualified the first year I had my card or
Okay.
permit.
Okay.
I went on my permit.
95, 96,
And,
97 then.
I was actually halfway in the running for rookie. I mean, I was down the list, but I was in there.
Yeah.
And I won rookie for our Northeast, but
Yeah. You were in the rookie standings in the world.
yeah,
Okay.
it was down, but
Yeah. Yeah, but you're in there.
I was
right?
in there.
Your name's in
Yeah.
print. Look, I'm somebody. I'm
Yeah.
in print.
so yeah, won the. I came back from Florida in 96, or maybe it was 96, and then 97 I purposed that I was going to win that sucker. I was going to do whatever it took, and I went to a lot of Cowtown. I think I hit every Cowtown rodeo, and then every PRCA rodeo that I could.
Yeah.
At that year, I won the year-end award for Barnes rodeos.
Really?
So
Nice.
I won the most in bareback riding for the Barnes. So that tells you how many rodeos I went to, and like I said, every one that I could go to.
Yeah.
And we had the finals in Cowtown that year.
I was going to ask where that was. Okay.
And it came down to the last ride. And that last ride, I don't remember who the horse was. I think it was a black horse, and I was in the furthest up chute. And he came out, and he was a bucking Hank, but he was kind of a wild horse, so he was getting a lot of air, not covering much ground, and just clacking. Okay. And I just ripped it out of him.
Okay.
And it was between me and I think Gaetan.
Oh, Bernard. Yeah.
And that horse won me the Cowtown buckle for the year. It won me the that round. Yep. And it won me the average.
Okay, I was going to
and
ask,
it won me the year.
Okay.
Yep.
So that was a big rodeo for you.
That was
a big ride for you.
That was that horse. If I would have had a dud, it would have went like the rest of my. Well, yeah. There's been a lot of. So that year I won the championship, and this is just kind of how it usually went for me. They had somebody making spurs for all the champions. Yeah. Handcrafted
nice
spurs.
Yep.
By some old guy that made spurs, and they're all handcrafted, and had, he got the bull riding spurs done and the barrel racing spurs done, and I think the steer wrestling maybe. And I'm like, I asked him, I said, "Where's my spurs?" And the guy died.
Oh my gosh, the spur maker.
The spur maker.
Oh my goodness.
My goodness. You can't just go down to the store and buy these things.
No.
So I got nothing.
You didn't get your spurs.
No.
But here in your mind, you've got those spurs.
Sometime. Yeah, maybe. I mean, that's just the way it went. And I went to Castleton, Vermont.
O'Rourke's, Pond Hill.
Pond Hill. Yeah. And I won the all-around because I rode bulls that year, and I rode bulls all year long. And so I won the all-around. Well, the two O'Rourke boys had the all-around go to the Timies for 7 years in a row, and they didn't like the Timies. So they decided they weren't going to get an all-around buckle. That's the year I won.
Oh, they didn't have a buckle for you.
No buckle. Can I buy the buckle?
Yeah.
Yeah. No.
Nope, we're just not giving a buckle.
We're just not giving a buckle.
Okay.
The only all-around buckle that I would have ever won, because after that I stopped riding bulls.
And in '97, when you win the circuit, it qualifies you for the Dodge National Circuit Finals, Pocatello, Idaho.
Yep.
Talk a little bit about that experience.
So first time I flew.
Okay.
And I rode out there with Jimmy Grasso. Mm-hmm. I flew out there with Jimmy.
Yeah.
So I'm on the plane.
You flew in his plane?
No.
Okay, because
commercial,
he's a pilot.
Right? And he's riding in the same plane as I am, and which is good. Now, I'm not only afraid of heights, which I mentioned, I'm claustrophobic, and I don't like crowds. So, unless I'm in the middle of the arena by myself.
Yeah.
With two pickup men. So we're in this plane, and I'm like, I gotta tell you, Jimmy, I'm not liking this. I says, I'm in a confined space. I'm in this tin can. There's a lot of people in here, and I'm afraid of heights. He gives me something. He says, take this, you'll be fine. I'm not a guy that I've never done drugs.
Yeah.
So I take it because I'm desperate.
Yeah.
And then he started telling me that, when you take off, you're going 220 miles an hour or whatever. So I am a fan of speed.
Yeah.
So I'm looking out the window, and I'm like, okay, this is cool. And then we lift off, and I'm like, whoa. and I couldn't close my eyes. And I was just glad that he gave me whatever he gave me because it got me through. But
Yeah.
so we go out there and we had a blast. Jimmy Grasso kind of he had been out there before, so he kind of took me under his wing and
Sure.
whatnot. And we rented this car, and I feel sorry for whoever got that car after us because we just some stupid things that cowboys do. You know, whoever was driving couldn't use the brake.
Yeah.
The brake, so the emergency brake was right here in between the seats, and it was the rider's responsibility to use the brake.
I see. You had all kinds of rules and games you were playing. I see.
I don't know how we didn't get in a wreck, but I remember coming up to a T intersection, and I'm like, Jimmy, you need to put on that brake. Come on, Jimmy. And we had to take that corner about 50 miles an hour. That rent-a-car was around the corner. So then, when it was my turn to turn the brakes,
You were a little more precise.
No, we gave it right back to each
You gave
other.
it right back.
I don't know how we lived through it.
Yeah. When do you, and I know we talked about this in the Attica episode that we did, you talked about it was time to retire. You knew kind of when it was time to retire, and you pretty much said, done. Switch throws, and I'm done.
So growing up around Mike Swearingen, and if anybody's seen him walk,
Okay.
when he's not, he's been through it.
Yeah.
So I said when I started, I wasn't going to go as long as Mike. I was going to stop at 35 so that I could still throw a ball to my kids or be able to walk halfway decent. And I always had those naysayers in the background saying, you got to get out of that. You're going to be in a wheelchair by the time you're whatever. So I'd always said, okay, at 35, I'll stop. Bareback riding's kind of rough. Mm-hmm. Well, at 34, like I said, I kind of tailed off on traveling with Fred all the time, and I was traveling most of the time by myself. Mm-hmm. So, and I was in the PRCA pretty heavy, and I was bareback director, and of our circuit, and I got road foundered. I just didn't want to drive anymore. And I still wanted to ride horses, but I didn't want to travel anymore. I was married for a couple of years because I got married in late '99, a couple days from now.
Mm-hmm. Don't forget.
Yeah, and so having a wife at home, she traveled with me sometimes, but not all the time. And even when they do travel with you, you can't travel with people most of the time.
Yeah.
So, and just the traveling, I got road foundered.
Yeah.
And it was close to 35. It was 34. So I figured, now's a good time.
And just like that?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
I got bucked off at that finals, and it was a horse I should have rode. I did ride. I won first time. It was a bucking horse, but it kind of screwed up that finals and kind of left on a bad note. I would have liked to. I won the first round. And I should have won that round too, and I should have won the finals. But, life starts. I mean, the more you live, the more your mind is, not your friend.
Yeah.
And I had a lot of things going on with the directory and trying to make the finals better and this and that. And I wasn't I was not 100% into riding horses.
Yeah.
And so it kind of put a sour taste in my mouth, and I'm like, you know what? Just like that, I gave up all my cards and stopped riding. And I still went to Attica, of course. And I remember getting on a horse and setting a kid's rigging for him, and just wanting to just let me ride one more time. And then I left rodeo for far away. Didn't watch it on TV. Didn't talk to anybody because I wasn't going down the road. So didn't watch it on TV. Didn't go to rodeos. Didn't go to Attica for probably, I don't know, 8 years or so.
Really? In your backyard, dude?
Yeah. Would not go.
Really?
Couldn't. It was like taking a mouse to a cheese factory, tell them not to eat.
Yeah.
I couldn't do it.
Couldn't do it.
And I still ride now about once a week, every night.
Bucking horses?
Oh, yes. Every night.
What?
When I'm dreaming. I still dream about riding.
Do you really?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I'm at rodeos.
Yeah.
I'm at the wrong end. My rigging bag's up there.
I was, we do before we get to that, I want to ask about the family. Tell us about the kids. You got a daughter that's hitting it hard right now.
She's crazy about horses. Anything to do with horses, she wants to try it. She even does English, and I've never even liked English. I still don't like English riding, but she wants to try everything there is to try. I've showed her a picture of Shane Carson Roman riding. She wants to try it.
Yeah.
I'm like, we don't have the horses to do that.
Yeah.
And she wants to rope, and she's getting into roping.
So team roping, breakaway.
Breakaway for right now. When she finds out that her old man can catch a head, she might want to team rope. But
Okay.
But you say English ride, you don't like it. That really is great for balance, and it's a good way to learn to ride. People that say, "Oh, I don't want, don't like this or don't like," it is fantastic for horsemanship.
Yep.
So
I agree. And the kids that I try to help out bareback riding, or bareback riding in the rodeo, I'll tell them, if you got a horse at home, ride them around the pasture bareback, because it'll strengthen your legs, it'll help your balance, and there's nothing like it. But yeah, English riding, I can see that. Just there's nothing there. There's no swells or anything.
So are you still riding? Pleasure riding? Getting on?
I have a horse.
You do.
And the last time I got bucked off was with Freddie and Lewis, and I was on my riding horse.
Oh, wow.
We needed to get a bull,
Yeah.
and like I said, I can catch a head. So I was the first one to catch this bull, and when I dallied and tied my horse to that bull, he was not having it.
Oh, wow.
So I let go of the dally. I
Okay.
let the
Okay.
calm the horse down.
Yeah.
So then Freddie and Lewis had the bull, and they're pulling on the bull, both of them up front, and I was behind. So I figured I'll just reach down, grab my rope, and snap that bull with my rope.
Yeah.
So I didn't leave my saddle. I just went down and got the rope, and that rope moved a little bit, and that horse saw that, my horse saw that, and when I tell you he come untrained, Freddie said he's never seen a horse buck like that. He was 3 foot off the ground and clacking it over his head.
Wow.
I'm out of the saddle.
Yeah.
So I get back up in the saddle long enough to catch the horn in my chest.
Oh, my. Oh,
And
my.
I said, I'm throwing this train wreck away.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that sucker went to bucking across the pasture. So that was the last time I got bucked off.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then really got bucked off. I have my daughter's horse, I was training that, and the cinch broke, but I rode the saddle to the
Rode
ground.
the saddle to the ground.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
It's all about numbers.
It's all about numbers. That's for sure. That's about yeah. Now, did you put a tally for getting bucked off the horse? Did you add that to
I did
your
not
sheet?
add that. That would have been 14.
Probably should.
Yeah. I don't like to. That might.
doubt.
Yeah.
So here's a question we want to ask you. How has rodeo impacted your life?
It was the best thing that I could have got involved with. Wouldn't have missed it for the world, but you do miss a lot when you're rodeoing. Yeah. You don't go to family reunions, birthday parties, funerals, anything. My family was very supportive, and they came to a lot of my rodeos, a lot of finals, but they knew I wasn't going to be there for anything else unless it was winter and there's snow on the ground. Yeah. Because and even then, a lot of times we were down in Florida rodeoing, but wouldn't have missed it for the world. Yeah. It was a great ride. Made a lot of friends. Looking forward to seeing them tomorrow. Yeah. Hope I still recognize some of them. Yeah. And I was just very blessed to grow up around the Swearingens and Fred and just people that help you along, because growing up anywhere else, I probably wouldn't have made it. And not the best by any means, but I wouldn't have been. I don't think I would have been champion of anything, and wouldn't have a drawer full of buckles. Yeah. And I wouldn't have had near the fun, because winning is the fun part. Mm-hmm. And so I'm just very grateful that I grew up where I grew up and who I grew up around, and them, helping you out. They could have not, just as easy, but great bunch of guys, Sam and Mike, and really their whole family. Jim's, their dad is one of my best friends, and so really blessed to have grown up around that. Always was in the culture, but having them guys show me what rodeo was about. Sure. And
wow. Well, Kelly, we covered a lot of ground, and I think we want to dedicate this episode to Freddie Backlas. Of course, to our listeners, he passed away last July 2023. And thank you, Kelly, for sharing these stories. To our listeners, we hope that you enjoyed this episode of our podcast with Kelly Page. If you do, please share with your friends. Word of mouth is always the best advertising. To make your listening easier, you can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Search for Beyond the Chutes and follow us, like us, rate us, give us comments. Let us hear from you. And we want to say thank you to Parasite Systems for their support with our podcast. Parasite System is a push-button parasitic diagnostic system for pasture animals, your horses, cattle, goats, sheep, chickens, and for your companion animals now, your dogs and your cats. So you can find them at parasitesystems.com, and we've got a coupon code BTC023 for 50% off your mail-in testing. And we want to give a big thank you to the New York State Rodeo Museum Facebook group page for all they do and for their guidance, their help, and their support. This is Beyond the Chutes with
Kelly Page
and
Sam Swearingen.
Until next time, this is Doug Simcox. Thank you for listening.